Episode 199 Above Ground Podcast. Hole in my life.
Disclaimer. The hosts of this podcast, Will Foley and TPP, are not medical professionals, and this is not medical advice. Both Will and TPP have first-hand experience with mental illness. They have their own perspective and own thoughts on mental health challenges. Above Ground Podcast was birthed to help those who struggle with their mental health through honest dialogue. These conversations aim to break down the walls while building stronger foundations for positive mental health. By speaking openly and sharing tools, they foster connection. By fostering connection, they convey hope. With connection and hope, we can continue to increase awareness. This is Above Ground Podcast.
Coming at you live with real conversations about mental health from the peer perspective, it's time for Above Ground Podcast. Now your hosts, TPP and Will Foley. Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to episode 199 of Above Ground Podcast.
Above Ground Podcast, because you can't serve below.
Do you know who that is? That's the fine vocal stylings of Mr. Timothy TPP Parent. That's right. What
Howdy,
up?
howdy, howdy. Hi, all. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. Another week.
Yeah, it is. It is another week. There's another week, and it feels like there's another hole
In my life.
in my life.
Yeah.
Is there always a hole?
I don't know.
With depression, as
feel
someone
like
who lives with depression, it
Yeah.
feels like there's always a hole that
Yeah.
never gets filled, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not just me.
Well, no.
And it's not just one thing, is it?
No.
That creates that hole, and it's not just one thing that can refill it, is
Right.
it? Okay.
I agree with that.
I'm asking that,
sentiment.
and I'm asking that in a rhetorical way, but I'm also asking it in a genuine, like, off-centered way, in a way to say, okay, like I'm dealing with this too.
I feel the same way, for sure. And, I was using the analogy of the balloon. You know, there's a tiny, tiny hole in a balloon. It's like, you know, for an hour, you may not realize it, that there's air seeping out, you know, and then 2 hours later, you're like, oh, man, my balloon's starting to, and then you're like, what? But it's already gone. So it's like, I feel like sometimes depression can be like that, you know?
Yeah,
It
does.
Sneaks up on you.
It kind of goes.
Like a thief.
No, it didn't do it enough. Got a little bit of it, though.
So, that's where I was kind of going with that. The hole in my life is, like just dealing with depression. Sometimes not knowing that it's there until you're knee deep.
Yeah, that happens a lot, man. That happens a lot. Sometimes we find ourselves in unfortunate spots.
Yeah.
And especially like if and Tim and I were just talking about this actually on the way here to record tonight, that I've been noticing that I'm starting to isolate a bit myself, as I'm recovering from lots of things here lately. So it's been interesting to notice even my own patterns, because I can notice my own patterns now way better than I used to be able to.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and even I know it. But the sad part of it is that I haven't been able to stop myself from doing it.
That's what I was about to say. That's the second part of it. It's like
you got to be able to stop yourself, and I have. It's been more comfortable to come.
Something you said actually
back to nothing.
Sparked something in me the other day, and I wanted to. I haven't yet, but I wanted to do like a design on it. But you had said something along the lines of like recognition, acknowledging, and I added acceptance. I think at the end of that. So like recognizing it, acknowledging it, and then accepting it. You know, I think those are some cool steps to learn to deal with it,
and then moving on from it.
Yeah, I think the accept, because you can't move forward without accepting it.
That's true, but you can accept
it
something without moving forward, though, and that's, or maybe you can't. Maybe that's
you might be able to move, but you're not gonna.
Maybe you can't move forward without acceptance.
Yeah, I don't know if you can move forward. You might be moving like laterally or something.
Yeah, okay. That
yeah,
makes more
I think
sense.
to really, I guess I'll use the word heal. To like heal something, you have to accept it. You have to accept it, whether I'm gonna like this is, I'm gonna learn to live with this, or I'm accepting it as the way it is. Not gonna put my judgments on it and just deal with it as it is.
And you can learn to live with it and accept it and move on
Right.
and
And it's
create
still-
something new.
Right, and it's still, I'll say this: you can accept it, and that doesn't. Accepting it doesn't mean that it's not going to bring you any, despair or struggles. It's just accepting that it is what it is.
Don't add extra suffering to your suffering already by not being able to accept it, because that just creates more pain.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's that Buddhist tenet that we create our own pain by suffering. We create double the pain for ourselves.
Yeah,
We have to experience it over and over again.
I think there's something to be said with being in alignment. Being in alignment with yourself. And if you have certain goals or values that are set and in place, and if you're doing something that is steering you further away from those, I think that is when you're going to get some of that friction. That depression is going to sneak in and be like, hey, I'm over here. Like you wrote me down over here, and you're going that way. Like, what's going on? And then you're like fighting it because you're like unhappy. Then you're like, why am I unhappy?
Right, and then you get in your head and you start thinking about all the things that you're unhappy about, and it creates the pattern, and it just creates the cycle of going round and round.
Yeah.
The thing about it is, though, when someone with depression, I can only speak for my own depression. There have been many, many years that I haven't noticed it, that it just kind of creeps in and you didn't notice it. And then as I've gotten older and have adulted all these years and now have learned a lot of these skills and have learned stuff, I recognize certain patterns. It doesn't make them any less painful. And that's something, and it also doesn't make the depression lie any less. Because depression lies to you. Depression will lie to you and tell you that you're no good. It will lie to you and say that you should just stay here because nobody cares. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say. And all the things that the negative voices say to you, all the things the gremlins say when they're coming out.
I think acceptance will give some of that power back to you in your hands. Instead of, like, yeah, your depression's still going to lie, but instead of being, like, defenseless against it, now if you accept it, I think you're gaining some power.
Is it accepting it or is it questioning it?
Accepting it. Yeah, because you can question it all day long, and you're just going to probably end up in a rabbit hole and add more judgments and thoughts on top of it.
All right, then let me rephrase it. Is it questioning whether it's true or false? Do you need to do that in order to accept it?
I mean, I
Do you
would
have
say
to challenge it?
I would say yes.
Do you think that's a part of it? Is challenging
I
it?
do. Yeah, because if it's affecting you, you're going to want to kind of dissect it and figure out why, or figure out if it's legit. Like you said, is it lying? You know what I mean?
Right. Is it something that really does matter?
Right.
Or is it something that mattered once? Or is it something that used to matter that's just kind of, or is it maybe that you're so numb that you don't know?
Could be.
Because that's the thing about depression. For me, a lot of times when we say this, it kind of sneaks up on us. Mm-hmm. Yes, we talk about getting on the bus. We talk about getting on the struggle bus. But it's usually, I don't usually get on the struggle bus until I'm already in a depression. That's when I start going to the bus stop.
Yeah.
Is when I'm depressed, right? So I'm wondering, for you, have you noticed? Because yes, I've noticed you ebb and flow a bit, with stress and things like that, and certain things. But I've noticed that you bounce back a little bit.
I like to think that I do.
So what I'm curious to know about is, when did you recognize that change? And is there something that precipitates it? Like when you're in that funk, is there something that or is it so new to you to do this now that, because again, like, yes, we've been doing this, we've been carrying these bodies our whole lives, but, well, actually that's not true. Not these bodies, because we change every day, but we've been carrying this mind of ours. This mind of ours has been developing since we were born, unfortunately, in very negative ways. So to be able to break a pattern so fast is very, very hard, but is there a trigger or there's something that precipitated this last bout and you coming out of it that you can recognize about yourself?
In the moment, I can't really pinpoint anything specific. I think it's a matter of going back to accepting it. It's like accepting it, continuously and working at it and just kind of, dealing with the punches as it goes. And, I think, let me say this, like healing, for me in the beginning, it was more like I had my eye on something that wasn't really a part of it, maybe. Like, healing for me was like, I want to be this person that's strong and this and that. I want to be these things, right? But I was missing an essential piece. Is healing also means not just getting better and doing better, but loving the parts of you and accepting the parts of you that aren't better or aren't, that you think aren't good, in quotes,
That's interesting that you mentioned pieces. So do you think you have all the pieces?
What do you mean?
Do you think you have all the pieces for everything that you need now?
No, I don't think so.
Well, I was going to ask because I kind of was like thinking to myself, I'm like, I don't think you ever have all the pieces. I think the last piece comes on the day that you bid farewell to this earth form, and I think that's really when the final piece comes.
I think that I have a decent handle, on things. I have a decent like insight and perspective. What I think now is doing the integrating it into, putting it into action and using these things is what I think is sometimes a struggle. Because like you said, 30 years of unhealthy coping is hard to just cut and it's not tape,
No,
you can't just cut it and splice it together. So
I mean, think about that as a whole. Think about all those things that people are trying to change and how embedded things are and how bad, we can't even change our minds from feeling unhappy to happy. So how the fuck are we going to change?
Yeah.
And that's why the change is yourself.
Right.
Because that's how you become.
Exactly. But it's also, that's why I'm like, you have to learn to accept the pieces of you that you may not like, the old pieces that are ragged and ripped and
I like to think that they add the color though to the puzzle.
Sure.
I think that those are the colored
But I'm just
pieces.
saying, like for maybe not for most people, but like for me, like it was more of like, I want to hide these things and get rid of them almost.
Me too. I used to be like that.
And get these new pieces that are going to be,
Well, we think that the new pieces.
Right.
And the new pieces always do the same thing.
Exactly.
They become the old pieces.
Yes.
And then you're left at square one again. And granted, there is a need, actually. There is a universal need to have change. And unfortunately, most of us rail against it.
Whether you want it or not. I mean, there's.
And please don't ask for it because you have no control over how much of that you get. That's a public service announcement from Above Ground Podcast.
Or I'll say this: if you do ask for it, make sure that you think about it and you are clear and concise with what you want.
Yeah. Because if you don't know what you want, well, you're gonna walk around like one of those little wind-up toys that until they stop.
Yeah,
and you don't know where you're going to stop. and you never know if anybody else is going to wind you up.
But just, I think the key to this is you hold the wheel, you hold the steering wheel.
You do hold the steering wheel.
You may not think so, and your depression may lie to you, and past situations may have tricked you into believing that you don't have control over that wheel, but the truth is you do. And, it's a matter of, kind of like Will was saying a little while ago, was, yeah, you're in this depressive state or whatever, but, you might be able to bounce back a little quicker than last time. So it's not about, again, it's like going back to the puzzle pieces. It's kind of similar situation. It's not about just getting rid of the depression. It's accepting it, living with it, and then learning to kind of can just push through almost.
It's interesting that you say that, because the fact is that once I accepted all of this, it changed.
Sure.
But it took a while.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Like, it even took a while after.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've only really, truly accepted all of this, all of my own illness and stuff over the last, 4 or 5 years, and really accepted it over the last,
right.
Since we've been doing this podcast. But I accepted it before we started the podcast, because I wouldn't have done the podcast if I hadn't. But I'm saying it's taken me, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I was, just a couple of years out of my crisis.
Right.
Because it's been 10 years.
Has it been 10 years?
Yeah, it'll be 10 years. It was just 10 years that I started in therapy for it.
Do you think there's different levels of acceptance, or do you think that...
Yes. Yeah, I definitely do. And again, acceptance is a very tough piece of meat. And sometimes it will take so much chewing that, a lot of people give up. And that's really what it is. It's like a really tough piece of meat that you better throw a lot of barbecue sauce on, man.
How can you have any pudding if you haven't finished your meat?
That's right. How can you have any pudding? How can you have any root beer?
How can you have any root beer? Yeah, I agree with that. Actually, that's a good one. It takes a lot of chewing, and yeah, that's how it works sometimes. You got to chew your way through, and again, it's not about being able to just chew something quick and get through it, but it's more about being able to withstand a long amount of time of chewing and still moving forward and ready to chew more.
Well, so how do we keep coming back? How do we find the strength to keep coming back, man? I mean this in a sincere way, because I'll tell you the truth. There have been some days where I'm this is another part of the conundrum for me. And I didn't mean to hijack off the topic.
No, go ahead. What?
Because I noticed this, and I've noticed that everything in my life I'm looking at from both sides, and it's been very difficult too, because I see everything in that yin and yang way. I see the parts of my life that are this, and I see the other parts that are that, and it's been this. And it's all coming at the same time, and every interaction almost, I can see the good and the bad. I can see, but it's difficult. And
sure.
Sometimes it's
I know.
Sometimes I just want my old emotions back and just to scream, but I can't.
Right.
Because something won't let me. There's something in me that says, "Okay, wait a second.
Well, I think
you've learned better, so try to do better." Now, don't get me wrong. I'd like to lose my shit, but it's hard, and I don't know. I do but again, I get tired. I get tired of the fight.
Yeah. Well, I think you need to, we've talked about this before, is I think, number one, self-compassion. has to be included. And also like some self-care, rest or whatever, and just being able to recognize it. Again, there's that word, recognize, acknowledge like that you're overwhelmed and you just need a break, and it's okay to take a break. You're not stopping. You know what I mean? And whatever break you take for the next day or two isn't going to erase what you have done previously.
That's right. That's true.
Sometimes, so I think it's just, I think it's about kind of talking yourself through it and trying to be extremely mindful of what it is you're looking at, what it is you want, and where exactly are you?
Probably not where I want to be.
Which is fine, but you're not where you were 4 years ago.
Oh, no, I'm not where I was 10 years ago.
No, I'm just saying, I'm not even asking, I'm just saying in general, like that, those are questions that universally you can ask yourself. You know what I mean? When you're kind of stuck in that hole, or if you feel like you're running out of air, it is kind of, again, stick with those goals and values that you set for yourself. Because I think once you get further away from them, is when you're going to see some, some gas let out of the tank.
I can honestly say I haven't fallen back into the old patterns like I normally would. Like, I'm not beating myself up.
That's good.
I'm not as like you're such a like such
yeah.
Like I'm not.
I've actually
because I'm like
I've stopped. I think I've stopped that a little bit too.
I've kind of just been like, I've actually been laughing a lot, but it's an uncomfortable sort of misguided, misplaced sometimes, because on the inside, I'm screaming all kinds of things. I'm screaming obscenities. I'm screaming. I'm screaming everything.
And and that's the thing. It's like, again, anger has a bad rap. It's anger is a healthy emotion that we all have. It's what you do with it.
Right. As long as you don't let it eat you,
right,
or control you.
Right.
And that's a difficult task for a lot of people, man. A lot of people. But I have to say, my anger has been very controlled. I've actually simmered down a lot in the last just couple weeks, and I don't know if it's just from being emotionally tired, or if I just don't give a fuck, man.
Sometimes I've noticed the more emotionally tired I am, the more irritable I am, though.
Well, I have too, and I'm not as much.
So maybe it's something. That's what I'm saying. Maybe it's something different. Maybe it's more of an acceptance of
could be
of who you are and where you're at.
It could be. I could be. I'm trying to celebrate little things.
Yeah,
because there's enough good things to offset the shitty things.
Yeah, as long as we pay attention to them. And
well, you have to.
Yeah,
you have to. That's part of staying. That's part of staying above. Man. I think is acceptance is absolutely necessary for staying above. So there's tenet number one, man. That's the number one commandment. It's acceptance.
Yeah.
Because without it, you don't have anything. Because if you can't accept it, then you can never move past anything, which means you're going to have an awfully hard time making the biggest part of it, which is the connection. And
I think you're going to rehash the steps. If you can't accept it, you go back to the first step or whatever.
Yeah, it's a cycle. It's Groundhog Day. It's the needle in the record, man. It ain't going anywhere. You're just going to...
No.
The song's never going to...
It likes to find that groove.
Yeah, it does. And it gets in that groove, and it just wears it right down.
Sure it does. And sometimes it feels good though, right? You don't have to pay attention. It just falls where it goes, and you just
we know it.
It's
we
easy,
know
right?
it. It's comfortable.
It's comfortable.
Doesn't matter if it's good. Doesn't matter if it's healthy. But it's comfortable, and we are a nation of comfort.
Yeah,
we are a world of comfort. We are, always looking for the next comfort, whether it's the next comfort food or the next comfort technology or the next comfort
Feeling.
lay. Yeah, it's all about feeling. It's
Yeah.
that. And
I think that's
there's
what-
a lot. I mean, and there's connection. That's how people connect, and that's really at the heart of all of this. And it's as we're coming up on. This is episode 199. Next week,
yeah.
Next week is episode 200. Okay, we've put out 200 episodes of Above Ground Podcast next week, and our guest is Capital Region Living Magazine's own Abby Terneglia. And we're so looking forward to having her on. She's got a tough story, man. She lost her brother during COVID, a lot of things, but she is awesome, big mental health supporter. We met her during Nipperfest 2022. Nipperfest 2023 is going to be coming up in July. And, episode 200, man, is coming up. But episode 199. And you know what? This is all about what Above Ground Podcast is all about. It's all about connection. It's about connecting us through story. It's about connecting us through emotion. And it's about connecting us through that human, through the human condition. Because we all suffer, man, and we may not all see what we all suffer from. So we thank you so much for all of this, listening, man. When we started out, dude, I had no idea that after the first 7 were recorded, and then that would just start the trajectory. So for nearly 200 weeks, this has been going on week after week. So we thank you very much for listening to this during this, man. And that's one of the great things about this. That's something to celebrate. You know what I mean?
For sure. I think that's a pretty big victory, really. I mean, we talk about the small victories and acknowledging them, but I think that's a pretty 200 episodes. I don't know. For me, it's pretty cool. And
dude, it felt like it was just 100.
Yeah.
It did. It felt like we were just at 100.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden we've got another 100 in the can. That just means 200 weeks. That's
200 weeks of stomping out stigma.
Fucking A.
I got to say, though, we've pretty much stayed true to that, We've stayed true to, because when we kind of started this was that was the main focus was to, start conversations and help stomp out stigma.
Oh, I think we've held true to what we started out as. I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do with it, how we can change it, how we can make it better, how we can do whatever and still be us.
Well, we'll always be us.
We'll always be us. But, we got a lot of stuff going on this year too, man. It'll be, spring is here.
Spring's here.
Spring is here. We'll definitely be at Nipperfest this year. We'll probably see you at some other events, I'm sure, because spring here in the capital region, well, we're still not out of snow time yet.
Yeah, no.
In reality.
Yeah, we're not in the clear yet.
No, not quite yet. Not quite yet. Timmy, you're gonna have the bike out soon.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know. I think I've accepted the fact that at least another month.
Oh, yeah. It's hard not to accept that fact up here.
Yeah.
Got to wait till the salt gets washed off the road.
Yeah, exactly. You don't know. And there's just, between the salt and the rocks and, debris that's all over the place.
I actually washed my car yesterday for the first time in, I can't tell you how long. It may actually be years, literally. And I can't tell you how good it looks. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, damn, maybe I should actually wash the car a little bit more. And then I was like, wow, see, that's good, man. That added to a good feeling
right,
for
that's
me.
The little things.
It was the little things on,
It's exactly what I was going to say before you even said it. It's, it's things that you may...
And it's the fact that I had the money to pay for it.
That's true.
And I didn't have to worry about it.
Right. It's the things that you, may overlook that, whatever, it's just a car wash. I don't need that. And this, that, this, that, and the other. And then you get the car wash, or you buy yourself a bag of M&Ms or something, and you're like, you know what? That was a nice little treat.
Yeah. Yeah, it's come in handy.
Yeah, I think those are the things.
I've also been able to treat others too.
Oh, sure.
Which I've done
Right.
on more than one occasion.
And those are the things that, again, kind of not only keep you above, but keep you aware of that hole. And
Yeah, it's
just kind of like, I can't think of the word I want to use, like checking in, being aware, and just by doing those things, you're filling that hole. Really, is what you're doing. You're making sure that there is no little gaps.
No, there's gaps. It does fill the hole. It makes the hole less hollow.
Oh, sure,
It doesn't fill it. There's like for me, there's nothing.
No,
that
I know what you mean.
There's nothing that will ever fill whatever hole that is. There's just not.
Right,
and I don't know if it's grown with me as I've gotten older.
But again, it could be that acceptance thing and saying, you know what?
But I accept that.
Maybe it'll never be full, but it's more about watching it and making sure that it doesn't get too low.
Well, yeah, it's about it not getting too hollow again.
Right. So if the air comes out of the balloon, it starts getting a little, old looking with wrinkles and stuff like that.
What are you trying to say?
Nothing.
He's like,
considering
nothing.
Somebody just had a birthday like a week ago.
Yeah. I'm just getting old, man. No birthdays. Happy New Year.
That's right. Will's Happy New Year.
Yeah, it's New Year, man. New Year.
Will's like, no year, no me.
New Year, new me. Woo. I get 3 extra months every year, too, because of it.
3 extra months?
Yeah, because you figure. My new year doesn't start until March.
Oh, okay. I see what
So
you're
I
saying.
get January, February, and almost all of March before I'm even thinking about the next year. You can have your calendar flip. Your calendar flip don't mean shit.
Right.
But if you weren't put on, because if you weren't put on this earth on January 1st, then you ain't had a year.
Right.
Sorry.
Right. Yeah, it's not gonna.
But it actually that's been like that was one of those changes. Like that
Just
was a
changing that
change.
little thing.
Just changing that little mindset, dude,
Right.
was proof to me that A, I could, but B, it's actually beneficial.
That's what it's about.
I mean, unfortunately, I have not utilized my extra 3 months very well lately, but I'm gonna cut myself some slack and show myself some grace.
There you go.
I don't want to say I deserve it, but I at least have reasons for it that some of which beyond my control. So I'm gonna maintain my partial smile.
I think we're all deserving of it, but that doesn't make it so. So it's just a matter of you saying that you're gonna allow it.
I'm gonna allow it. I've allowed everything. I'm trying not to damn it, but
Let it fall as it will.
sometimes you gotta.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not easy.
Well, no, most of the times it's not. But I think recognizing, acknowledging, and accepting.
Yeah, radical acceptance is part of filling the hole in your life.
Oh yeah.
It's a good place to start with the patch.
Yeah.
Acceptance is the fill.
Nice. Acceptance is the fill.
Acceptance
I like
is the fill, man.
that.
To
Yeah.
the hole in your life.
How do you guys fill up your balloon?
I fill it up with helium. Although, I don't think Red Robin had helium in their balloons the other day, though.
Red Robin, not a sponsor.
Red Robin, not a sponsor.
No, I don't think people do helium anymore.
Sucks. I was like sucking it out of the balloon.
Yeah. They probably. I think they stopped because of you.
Probably. Well, everything's a drug, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Helium.
Helium, the new heroin.
Can we say that on air?
Oh. People need to lighten up a little bit.
All right. Well, So that
if I was in active recovery for substance use, I'd be talking about it the same way I'm talking
I
about
know
it
you would.
now.
I'm not like fucking around. But that's it, man. That's what we have for today. And I guess see you next week, right?
Sure. I
All right.
guess. What, for 200?
Yeah.
Yes, it is 200, man. I
Next
can't
week is
wait.
200,
Next week
yeah.
is 200. Wow. Holy shnikes.
So tune in.
Yeah, tune in here, Abby. We
Hit that subscribe button.
Saratoga Living magazine. You know those magazines around the Nippertown and the 518. Oh yeah, those are hers. She is the CEO, man. She's cool, but she's got a tough story, her brother. But great conversation. You'll dig it.
For sure.
So
Get well.
be safe.
Stay.
Above.
Thank you for giving us a listen. New episodes every Wednesday. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, you can share, rate, review, and even subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. Other ways to support the show: follow us on social media, share the content, share our episodes. You can also buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/abovegroundpod. For further concerns, show ideas, or just to say hi, you can email us at abovegroundpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, thank you for listening and supporting mental health. Keep the conversation going and stay above.